Now there's like 3, 2, 1 countdown. I love that. I like the idea that somebody's podcast like needs to start like right on like immediately. Hello and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and their guests revisit the movies of the 1980s that we think we love with these our modern eyes to see how well they hold up. Today we were watching Clue, a movie selection from 1985.
Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean? Murder.
But only one of these suspects is the murderer. Is it the timid Mr. Green?
Why are you screaming? Because I'm frightened! What? Screaming!
Or the militant Colonel Mustard?
If I was the killer, I would kill you next. Huh? Said if.
Mrs. White, who helped her husband on his way?
What's a matter of life after death? Now that he's dead, I have a life.
Miss Scarlet, who's helped many men along the way?
Practice makes perfect.
Professor Plum, who's looking for a way?
I'm looking.
Mrs. Peacock?
I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, but I am determined to enjoy myself.
Or did the butler do it?
No.
Paramount Pictures invite you to an evening of mystery.
Let us in! Let us in! Let us out! Let us out!
Murder.
This is getting quite serious.
And madness. In the movie that makes a scene of the crime.
So who did it?
Clue. It's not just a game anymore.
That's kind of a weird trailer. There's it did that thing with their stuff in the trailer that's not in the movie. All right. So I'm Chrissy Lenz, director of the Neighborhood Comedy Theater. And with me as always.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Nathan Blackwell, filmmaker and podcaster, apparently.
I think it's been like 3 years, Nathan. I think you're a podcaster. And with us today is also a podcaster and educator and film expert, Mr. Jeff Frank of the
Hello.
Knights of the Rolled Table podcast.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is excellent. Most excellent.
Most excellent.
Nice.
So, what is your history with this movie? You picked it, Jeff, so we'll start with you.
Yes, and I have to say, I'm shocked that this isn't one of the first movies that you did in the podcast because
we can't start that strong up front. We've got to spread them out. It's like, why haven't you done such and such? Well, come on, we've got to pace ourselves.
That's true.
Well, you had to get Dragon Slayer in there. I mean, everybody. There are people clamoring to hear you talk about that. But no, this is a fantastic film. Absolutely essential 1980s watching, in my opinion. And I hope you feel the same. Otherwise, a very awkward conversation. Yes, a pretense to murder that really works.
That's really what we should do, is essential viewing for if you're going to commit a murder. There we go. I was writing that down.
To see how many possibilities there are. This is one of my favorite movies. I definitely have this movie 100% memorized, to the point where I was watching it last night with my kids, and they were like, "Mom, if you're gonna keep saying the movie along with the movie, we're gonna go." And I'm like, "Well, then perhaps you should go because
then be gone with you."
Yeah. I don't know how to not do it that way. I've seen this movie a gajillion times, and I've seen it a bunch. I've gone to see it at revival screenings, at the Alamo Draft House.
Oh man,
where they give you little cap guns and stuff to play along with. I've gone to that twice. So.
Oh wow.
It's real good. I think this movie is responsible for a not insignificant percentage of my comedy personality.
Well, a great source to draw from because it's full of great comedic performances, like nonstop. They are comedy acting their butts off in this movie. Every moment, they're just chewing every frame of this movie up to try and like be funny and like shticky and do something silly and ridiculous in each bit of the role. I mean, just like in the extended shot I'm thinking of that just jumped out is when they're drawing lots.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
it's just this long, like 45-second take, and it's just
Just
walking
all
around and
Mr.
looking at each other.
taking it all very personally. Like,
Yes,
are we together? No, we're not together. Oh, perhaps us? No, we are not together.
it
Yeah,
is
if you
such a good mix of like quick edits and quick energy, frantic energy, and then also something that's just this long. Mm, uh, mm, uh, oh,
Mm.
mm, mm.
There's so many moments of silence in this movie where you don't lose any of the energy or any of the comedy, like when they're each trying to find a place to sit in the drawing room or the lounge or whichever room's full of in the study where there are all the dead bodies and they're just like all trying some place to find some place to sit, and Mr. Green like ends up leaning on a table, and there's no dialogue to hold up the attention, but just watching everybody's very subtle responses is just, there's so much there. It's on every level. It's in the vocalization, it's in the physical comedy, it's in the writing, it's in the it's everywhere you look, including in the board game Clue.
That's the craziest part of this, right? Is like no part of this should work.
Yeah.
Nobody like going to a like we're gonna make a movie based on a board game. And you know the board game, it's Clue. It's about murder and you're trying to figure it out. But here's the thing, it's gonna be funny.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a really funny movie about a board game about murder.
And this, according to the internet, is the first movie based on a board game.
It's stupid that that's a genre, but here we are.
So what are the other ones? There's Battleship.
Battleship I could think of. Jumanji?
Jumanji.
Well,
was that-
No, Jumanji was a book.
Okay.
It was a
that's
book
true.
about a board game. Well, I think one of the reasons why Clue works as a movie is because the board game practically is based off of movies, of whodunit movies, of like, like the classic, like, Death on the Nile, like the Agatha Christie kind of like, Murder on the Orient Express, where it's like all these, like, in the movies, it's all these like famous actors, but which one of them did it, which one of them committed the murder.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done in a way that you could play, it recycles and spins all the locations and elements so that you can play multiple times. But yeah, I feel whereas I guess, otherwise, like a board game usually doesn't have a narrative, not really, like life,
Right.
It's a very broad thing, or like Monopoly. It's like, well, it's
Oh my
just
God.
people getting rich.
Do you think like in the screening of the movie that when they were like like with the super fans on like opening night, like, oh man, oh guys, the Clue Club, we are going to this, we are going, and then like in the movies are like, well, let's go to the drawing room. They're like, whoa, they said the thing. Oh, they open it with the pipe, and they're all like, "Oh, the pipe! It looks just like a pipe." Oh.
Got their own versions.
Yes.
Are there like board game
Play
fans
as
out there?
Miss Scarlet.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I would love to believe that that's true. I just want to. This movie, like, it feels like a play, and I feel like somebody should put it on as a play. Like, just use a set from Noises Off, and let's do
Okay,
this
you
as
have
a
to
play.
cut this out because that's too good of an idea to let out there. We need to cut this part of the podcast out and start developing it now. You can't let somebody else beat you to this.
So it was written by John Landis.
Along with the director.
Yes, whose name I didn't write down. Sorry.
Jonathan Lynn. Jonathan Lynn of My Cousin Vinny fame.
Ah, yes. Uh, and we've done John Landis movies before. Like we've done Three Amigos, and John Landis and Tim Curry worked together on another movie that is not very good, but that I really love called Oscar. Have you seen that one? No.
Nope. Mhm.
Highly recommend. But yeah, they were just like, let's make a movie out of Clue, the board game, and let's get like every single person who is going to be like, to like my kids who are 14 and 10 who are just like, oh, that's the guy from the thing and that's the lady from the thing, like people who have worked for so long.
Yeah.
And it's all held together by the amazing, like, is there anything Tim Curry can't do? The answer is no.
Yeah, truthfully, the hardest part of after watching this and preparing for this podcast was trying to think of a Wadsworth for the recast portion of this podcast. Like I'm still not 100% on my choice.
Well, you know who was almost Wadsworth was Rowan Atkinson, and he was rejected by the studio because he wasn't
famous.
Because he was too British or not known by Americans.
I mean, well, he is too British.
Yes, yeah, he is too British.
He's aggressively British.
I think he's like 250% British.
Yeah. He would have been great though. But like even when Rowan Atkinson is being serious and is like playing it not Mr. Bean, he's still just like, and I don't know if it's because I see him as Mr. Bean, but I look at his face and I want to laugh. Like I can't take him seriously.
Yeah.
And Tim Curry is so serious that when he is hilarious, it goes the other way. It's not like I'm a hilarious clown who now you must take seriously. It's like is definitely a murderer, and now you're gonna laugh at me. And his performance is so good.
It's classic Tim Curry. It's like literally if I could only have just one Tim Curry, it would be this Tim Curry. Probably because it was my first.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I would have to think hard, but I would probably land on Clue. He's amazing. And then we've got let me see if I can get them in the order that they arrive. The first person to arrive is Martin Mull as Colonel Mustard.
Yeah.
Is that right? And then we have Miss Scarlet.
Leslie Ann Warren.
No. She comes in with Professor Plum. They come in together.
Yep.
And they're almost last, if not last. The next person comes is Mrs. White, who's wearing black. And she is, oh my God, Madeline Kahn?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
The awesome Madeline Kahn.
She's amazing. I don't know why her name just went away from me. She has my favorite line in this whole movie.
Oh, every line of hers is a favorite line, right?
Yeah. She's just so good at being weird, at being unexpectedly weird.
But also like she is playing it 100% sincere, 100% earnest. Like she is grounded as a character, as an actor, and she's making like logical choices, but she is absurd. But those choices are absurd.
It seems like they shot like all of her takes are like, okay, give me the line again. All right, do it again. All right, we've done it 40 times. All right, just do the craziest thing you can think of for this take that we haven't done before. And it's just like, and it's like, it's just great.
Yeah. If someone who is totally married to like the script, I could see being frustrated with Madeline Kahn because she brings in so much of her own like choices into what she does, but it's awesome. Like if you love what she does, then you're begging for those things.
Well, and I feel like everybody has like Virginia Woolf, like rattle off very smart, very cleverly worded lines, and she's got tons of them, and she just hits them so fast. Like, how many husbands have you had? Mine or other women?
Yeah.
5. Yes, just the 5. She's so great. And
honestly, the rewatchability of this movie is just because some of those lines just come buried under other lines that are just said in a breath, in a reaction. And so you can watch this movie 30 times and you would pull out a new joke, a new thing that you didn't catch the first time.
Yes. And the cleverness of it, just like, I think what I responded to when I was watching this movie as a kid was the physical comedy and the slapstickiness and the silliness, and then you watch it now as an adult, and it's so clever and smartly written. Like I when I was looking up like who wrote it, I was like, oh, this seems like a Tom Stoppard because it's so smart. And I guess they offered it to him, but he was like, I don't want to write something about a board game. So we get Christopher Lloyd and Leslie Ann Warren, Professor Plum, and Miss Scarlet, who arrived together because they bumped into each other. Michael McKean is Mr. Green, and we don't get a Mrs. Peacock arrival moment, do we? But she's there, Eileen Brennan, and that's our core cast of characters. And then we have, there's so few people in this, like it would be such an easy play. We have the cook, we have the maid Yvette, and of course Mr. Body. It always sort of, so the plot is everybody's been called here. They're all like, they've all been given a pseudonym, which I was always curious, like, okay, so Colonel Mustard is a colonel and his alias is Colonel Mustard, so like theoretically his name is like Colonel Thompson. Why not give him a different designation as well to like really fool people? This is Admiral.
Oh.
And the same thing with Professor Plum. It'd be like, this is Associate Professor
Right.
Plum.
Intern Mr. Plum.
Yes.
And Viceroy White.
Right.
Give everybody a designation.
Yeah.
King Green.
So they're all here at dinner. Nobody knows each other. It's all very mysterious. They eat dinner where we get this brilliant slurping moment where they're all having their soup and like everybody's sitting there silent just slurping. And then thank you. Thank you for adding some ASMR. Yeah. Wadsworth reveals that everybody who's been invited is being blackmailed, and the plan is to confront Mr. Body, their blackmailer, and be like, please don't blackmail us anymore. Do I have that right? That's the plan?
I guess, but that's the plan in the middle. That's not what you initially think is the thing. Mm-hmm. But that's like the truth when you're in the middle of the movie. That's the premise that everybody's working on at that point. But by the end, that's not the truth of the matter, right?
Yeah, right. Because it's also because there's 3 different endings. So depending on which ending it is, then the plan is different.
Which I like. I've never seen it without all 3 endings.
We saw it at home video. What I didn't know is that when they released it in theaters, it had one of 3 endings, and each ending was the real ending. And it wasn't until home video that they said, "Oh, let's add in all 3, but we're going to say this one is the official ending."
Which is so cool. What a cool thing to do. Like, again, it's a movie about a board game. Like, what are we talking about? It's not like this big concept piece of like, I'm going to make 3 endings so it has this like artistic reveal and like each person takes away a different thing. Like, I don't know. We have 3 different mysteries that it ends and it'll be awesome.
Well, that's I think because it is the game, right? Clue is so replayable every time it's a different combination. That's what makes it fun. So if I just saw one ending, I don't think I would love it as much because the point is you shuffle up that deck, and the next time it's going to be someone else, and the next time it's going to be someone else. And the perfect ending, I would feel so cheated if I didn't get the ending where everybody killed at least someone, because then you wouldn't get the line from from Christopher Lloyd where he's like, "Wait a minute, then who did I kill? My butler." Oh shucks, like. And yeah, so I just, to find out that it was that some people didn't see all the endings, just like blew my mind. I was like, but it makes so much sense, and it's so fun. And like, of course, at the time, people thought it was repetitive, and they did not respond to the gimmick. Because of course it was like, well, they'll go see it again and again once word gets out, and there's multiple endings. Also, how many fights do you think broke up couples that like went to see it separately, and they were like, yeah, wasn't it crazy? Mrs. Peacock did it? What are you talking about? Miss Scarlet did it. Wait, what? And then they just fight and fight and fight, each one of them convinced of their truth.
Well, Chrissy,
probably very few in all honesty, but I like it. That's a funny one.
If a marriage can be broken,
the movies separate, they're already seeing the movies separately. They've already got issues.
I already have questions.
They didn't even see it in the same theater. They had to go to different theaters to see it.
Yeah, they did.
Here's what it could. Here's
Clue
how that could
wasn't
work.
the problem. Clue wasn't the problem at that point.
I bet no. Here's what it could be: is that somebody went to go see it, was like, "Oh, honey, you have to go see this movie because of the way that this thing ends here. It's so crazy." And then they go and see it, and they're like, "Oh, I liked how it ended like this." And then they're like, "That's not how it ended. Were you somewhere else, Michael? Were you cheating on me? No, that's how it ended. I swear."
The plot correct except for the very ending. I deduce that you snuck out at the last 10 minutes.
Yes, you were
sneaking in the exact plot entirety for the first hour and 20 minutes to me just now.
Mm-hmm. Marriage dissolved.
So like, but at the initial bit where we introduced the subject of the murder is when Wadsworth reveals, oh, Mr. Body, he's the one. They each talk about what they're being blackmailed for, and they're like, what about Mr. Body over here? And it's like, oh, he's blackmailing you, and he's like, oh, I had an idea. I'm getting everybody a gift, which and he gives everybody their weapon, right? The revolver, the wrench, the lead pipe, the knife, and the rope. And the candlestick. Everybody gets one, which I have to think to myself, like, was he just looking around the house?
He had only bought the gun and the knife, and then he was like, gosh, I don't know.
He came up with the idea on the drive over. It's like, all right, what's in my trunk? I always wondered why, the Mr. Body always seemed out of place. Like Mr. Body, I was always wondering, was it like an artistic decision that he was a little flat, or he was played by an unknown, or why was he so different than everyone else? And then doing the research, it's like, oh, he wasn't an actor, he was a musician, and the director probably liked him. He was so
it's all making sense.
It was just bad casting.
Yeah, if there's one weak spot, it's Mr. Body's performance. But at the same time, it's like, oh, I'm so glad he's dead through most of it, right? He dies, and it's like, oh, thank God, I don't have to watch him anymore.
He seems like such a weasel. But then when you reveal that he was Wadsworth's butler, it's like, that man's nobody's butler. He's not.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But they picked him because his name is Lee Ving. And they're like, leaving. It's funny. Get it? Mr. Body is leaving because he's going to die. It's funny. And it's like, it's only funny if you watch the credits really closely.
Right. So also, with the different endings, they would have someone come out and explain that in joke, too.
Yeah.
For each screening.
But I always wondered, so once they do, like, obviously, so Mr. Body's plan is like, you kill Wadsworth. And it's like, wait, why would any of them kill Wadsworth? They're gonna kill you, bud. Like, you should have seen that coming if you were thinking fourth dimensionally enough to be like, I'm gonna throw a wrench in this plan. Wait a minute, a wrench. That's what I should bring.
Damn it, I should have brought a wrench.
It's like, kill this guy who wants us to stop the blackmail, or kill the guy who is blackmailing you. Like he should have seen that coming.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
That's what they say in the movie. Don't think too hard about it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that part of it?
Mistakes were made.
Yeah,
They knew they had to get to that setup,
mm-hmm.
you know, and so it's just they reverse engineered from this is the perfect setup for this movie. How do we get them there? Here we go. Great.
Yeah, let's not worry about it.
Sure, great.
Yeah, it's all fine. Because eventually in the very, very, very end, if you see the Tim Curry ending where everybody's responsible, and you learn that he's the real blackmailer, then it's like I want to imagine his conversation, like, and all the people who are working there and arriving there are the network of spies and informants. So it's like, so he calls the motorist guy and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come by. Just come by the house, not my house. Just come by a house, but like pretend that your car broke down, but like really leave it outside because my other friend who's a cop, he's coming too. But so like he needs to see your car, and like, okay, and so you, my hooker friend, you come over and you're gonna like be the maid." And like, how did like
I would suggest not a sequel or a remake, but a prequel, which is like, him just like explaining these cumbersome plans and him like having these long conversations in these meetings and working out how everything's going to work.
But doing it in the same way that he explains how everything's done at the end of the movie, where he's running from hall to hall, and eventually everybody's just like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Just stop. I'm not running anymore, man. I'll do whatever you want. Just that's fine. Whatever. It doesn't make sense, but whatever."
Like teaching his butler how to do an American accent, because obviously he has to have a British butler.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like so he's like an event planner, and he's like, okay, so the singing telegram is coming at this moment, and so like if we're not ready by the time the singing telegram gets here, just don't think about that. It's fine. We'll figure it out. So yeah, so people start to die. Mr. Body is dead. Like then we start running all around. We're searching the house for other people, and like all of the extra people get murdered, but our core crew are fine. We find secret passages, which is exactly where they are and where they go in the game, and it's just all around fun.
Also, if you're a fan of cleavage, there's a lot to like in this movie.
Yeah,
one
of the winners of this movie is cleavage.
So I did read that Miss Scarlet was supposed to be played by Carrie Fisher. She was cast in that role, but had to drop out because she went to the rehab, and so that Leslie Ann Warren was a last minute replacement because she was friends with she was married to the producer. So they're like, I can get my wife in here. And she, she's
like literally in the next door. She's like literally in the next room.
What do you like? Can you imagine it with Carrie Fisher in that role?
Yeah, I think that would have been great. And then I also think Miss Peacock just got out of rehab for the movie.
She did, yes. That's true. Hey, look, man, 1985 was a wild time.
To be alive.
Oh boy.
So what are some of your favorite moments? Do you have favorite lines? Do you have favorite moments? What are they? My number one favorite, I will tell you, and it is the most gifable moment of this too, is, and apparently was ad-libbed, is Madeline Kahn, flames on the side of my face.
Yeah.
Breathless, heaving breaths. But I'm always like, flames on the side of my face. That's just how I explain myself when I'm feeling overwhelmed.
That's great. I think most all of my favorite moments revolve around Tim Curry.
No meaning yes? Yes, there is, great. Or yes, there isn't.
One of my favorites is when he's stumbling around in the dark and he's like, "Oh, another door!" and he turns it and it turns on the shower. It's just
that's
pure physical comedy. Just great.
Which is another interesting bit because the house belongs to a friend of his. He tells us that at some point. So like nobody who's there lives in that house, which only is the way to explain why he doesn't already know like where everything is and stuff. But his solution in all three endings is that they stack the bodies in the cellar and leave quietly one at a time. And it's like, that's your friend's house. You're going to just like...
He's not going to get a good Airbnb rating.
He's not.
Back. No.
He's not. Yeah. That always made me feel a little
Right. A little upset.
And then also speaking of reveals, in the very last one, we learned that Mr. Green is an undercover FBI agent.
Yes. Yeah.
And was only pretending to be gay, which it is revealed in what I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife. Which don't we all say that when we leave a room? It's like, what? He was just pretending to be the gay. Well, he really kept it up the whole time, so he's really good at being undercover.
Yeah, and seemingly for no purpose. It's not like he leveraged that personality to do anything.
Nope.
Just because, like, he's in, like, they're about to like go in this thing. It's like, so they don't know me. None of them will know who I am. Guys, I want to be gay for this. I think I want to be a homosexual man. Are you sure? That's not part of the thing at all. No,
you don't. No, you literally don't need to come up with a backstory.
No. I'm a gay man, and that's who I am. I feel like I need to do this. Again, you do not need to. It's not part of the mission. I'm going to break. There you go.
Oh, it's so amazing. But like, that's one of my favorite things is like imagining those moments of movies that we don't see, which is like just those moments of them coming up with their character. I love it. Okay. So, obviously we all think this movie holds up really well. Is that fair to say? Is there anything that you feel like, I mean, aside from like that little bit of like the like slight homophobia, although it doesn't ever feel homophobic, their treatment of like, you know, it feels very in and of the time. It doesn't feel like it's punching down too much. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that there are movies from like 5 years ago that are more homophobic and sexist and cringy than this movie is. That is much, much older than that. And the fact that it is that old and like, you know, not that you judge it by the worst things, but like it does have cringe, but not like so much that you're like, I cannot watch this anymore. You know, like some movies that are in the last 10 years that have come out and are like that. You know, so like in that, I feel like even with its, you know, you would never write it the same. You would never insert the same jokes, or you would reword them or play it in a different way so that it, you know, wasn't so horrendous or so abrasive, but it's not so bad that it's unwatchable or that it takes anything away from the overall experience.
Yeah, because also in there's 3 endings, and in only one of the 3 endings, he's playing a character.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, he actually is that guy.
In 2 universes, he's just allowed to stay gay. But I think the comedy that they play it for is really just that he's the only one who doesn't want to hang out with the very busty French maid.
Yeah.
And he's like, would anyone go with me? I will. No, thank you. Like, that's the joke that they're playing for. I really could perform this whole movie for you. Like, if I had shadow puppets,
Mm-hmm.
it was like the motorist. So we talked about, I know that you did a recast. What do we think of remaking this movie? I would love to see it done as a play. But what do we think about, like, if we were going to remake this movie, is it remakeable, and who would we put in it?
Well, I think it already has been remade, and I think it was Knives Out. Like,
oh, yeah.
I can't think about this movie and like remaking it and doing anything without being like, yeah, but Knives Out, like, kind of hit it out of the park. I would defer to that.
So there's a long tradition of these murder mysteries. It's maybe not like the whodunit murder mysteries that is maybe a lot of people in America don't have as much exposure. Like a lot of people when Rian Johnson was trying to make Knives Out, he was like, "Yeah, it's not really like Clue. This is actually like a genre, but that's people's touchstone for it, you know?" And I think that there's a ton of especially like on British TV, like it's almost more now in TV shows, and that we even kind of have our own versions here in America of just kind of like the whodunits, and so I feel like um a lot of people who really kind of also have a lot of fondness for Clue also have a fondness for the murder mysteries, which they kind of now associate this, as the murder mysteries.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that was definitely my introduction into like multi-star murder mysteries. Was Clue.
Yeah, I think so, and that's sort of like very British seeming for sure. But let's just say we were
okay
gonna remake it. Who would we put in those roles? Like it has to be the most hilarious people, right?
If we're doing like a 1-to-1 like remake, almost like shot for shot type of deal, is that kind of the idea? Not like a inspired by the first one proto reboot type thing, or what's our delineation of, are we adding characters? Are we changing the whole feel of it? Are we, adapting it in some certain way?
Okay, how about we remake it, but it takes place instead of making in the 80s and it takes place in the 40s, we make it now and it takes place in the 80s.
So this was made in 85 and it took place in 54. So that means 30 years ago was 1990 91.
It takes place in 1991.
I'm into that. I'm into it.
Yeah, except like I don't know, like is blackmail still a thing? Is that something?
Yeah,
we'll have to come up with a different reason.
I guess.
It's a thing. It's still a thing.
A lot of it is like a lot of the plot is based around like
thing.
I mean, all the blackmail is based around like, well, the papers will know about you. It's like, I mean, now it's like, yeah, fake news, like whatever papers.
I'm going to put it on my blog.
Ooh.
You like to have sex with people.
Oh, got him.
But so who would you? I know that we talked about like you couldn't come up with anyone to put in the Tim Curry role.
I have someone, but I don't know that I have the best one. All right, I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna go through my list. Okay. So I feel like when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about like the similar kind of like comedians who have maybe some acting experience, who are a little like lower orbit. They're not superstar comedians. They're not really expensive comedians. It's kind of this smaller cast. So that's kind of my reflection. So I've kind of chosen just some different comedians that I kind of like. Starting with the chef, I have Natalie Paramides. Police chief, I got Paul F. Tompkins. I got Paul in there. Seeing Telegram was Lauren Lapkus. I think it's just
so cute.
It's just a fun little thing. Now the random cop guy that comes in and is like, "What's happening here? Wait, I'm locked in a room. You better open this door." I think Keegan Michael Key would be good for that. Just to like over the top, be crazy with it. Yvette, I got Jane Krakowski from 30 Rock, who plays Jenna. Mr. Body, I got Jason Mantzoukas, just because he can be really like, just like standing up and be like, "I'm blackmailing you. That's right. What are you going to do about it, you dum-dums?" Miss Scarlet, I'm throwing in Kristen Bell.
I love her.
Because I think she can kind of pull off that kind of swarmy, little bit of that Arizona trash bag from The Good Place in there. All right, Mrs. Peacock. I'm going Mary Steenburgen for
Oh,
kind of that kind of more classier kind of performance. Colonel Mustard, Sterling K. Brown. How do you like
Is he
that?
funny? Is he funny?
I think he can be. I think he can be funny, but I think his seriousness as Colonel Mustard will like take him over the top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it'll be a real chance to, change it up. All right, Mr. Green, Channing Tatum. I'm gonna
Love
throw
him.
him in there. And then I got a switcheroo here, Professor Plum, Tiffany Haddish, just to throw in
Ooh.
another comedian in there to kind of shake it up. Mrs. White, I'm going with Julianne Raphael because she has that same. I can see her doing like just really interesting interpretations of each line. All right, and this is so I think he can pull it off. I think the energy of the franticness for this Wadsworth, he can pull it off. I'm not 100% on it, but I'm going Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh, I think Daniel Radcliffe has I think he has a range. Like that
Yeah.
kid's he's got chops. Like, did you see the one where he's like friends? He's the dead body. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Swiss Army Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I did see that. So like, I think I know he could pull off the like frantic, like, well, then he went over here, and then we're gonna go over here. That's what they gonna see. The gun over here. I think he'd be good at that part, but like the first part where he needs to kind of be the knowing butler, I'd have to see a screen test. I'm like 90%. I'm 90% on Danny Radcliffe.
I think that's an excellent choice. My suggestion would be Tom Hiddleston.
Ooh. You know, I'm feeling it. I think that could work.
Yeah.
We'll bring
Either
both
way,
in for a screen test and we'll see how it looks.
we'll see. We'll see how it
So
works for the rest of the cast.
for my I'm total crap at these recastings, but for my Wadsworth, I would go American with Mark Evan Jackson.
Oh my god.
Oh. Yeah. Nathan, you coming in, baby? We got a picture.
I'll see you on set tomorrow.
All right, we'll
Yeah.
see. Get your COVID test and we'll see you on set.
We'll work out the
well,
rest.
I think that I mean, honestly, I think we're going to start to see Mark Evan Jackson in a lot more stuff and a lot more leading roles now that the secret's out about Mark Evan Jackson, thanks to The Good Place and
And Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
He's so amazing. Yeah, I'm all for making this just a universe that takes place in like Dan Gore's like all the people from his shows.
Totally.
Let's get him in there to produce and write it. I think it would be great. All right, so on a scale of 1 shot to 10 shots, or 1 + 2 + 2 + 1 + 1 + 2 + 1 + 1, from 1 murder weapon to 10 murder weapons, how many murder weapons do you give Clue?
All right, so I've broken this down. You
Okay.
told me you wanted a rating, so
Mhm.
I've broken it down into rating.
Oh,
So I've divided it into rewatchability, artistry, technical, intelligence, nostalgia, and gravy. Gravy, that little extra that like a film has. Okay, so rewatchability, this movie gets a 10. I think absolutely one of the most rewatchable. Put it on anytime and you're going to have a great time. Artistry, I'm going to give that a 7. I think it does have, interesting art choices in it. I think most of it's pretty safe. Under technical, this is the lowest one. I gave it a 6. I think that, redoing it today, you might, try a little more improved technical aspects of it in the shooting and the.
Yeah, it's kind of lit like a stage to where it's a bit flat,
Yeah.
And they're obviously like having multiple cameras just pick things off.
Yeah. So I think it could have that. It could have that accelerated technical. That's the lowest one. Intelligence, and that's like how brainy do you have to be, or how like smart of a thing is, how clever is it? I give that an 8 because I do think it's super clever the way everything works. Nostalgia gets a 9. This is high up there on the nostalgia scale for everything. And then for that gravy, that thing you can't really explain about what makes it good, that thing that brings all of those things together, this gets a 10 for me. So averaging all of those out, this is an 8.3 murder weapons on my rating scale.
Wow. I think you just ruined our podcast by pointing out all the ways we should be doing a better job. Jeff, thank you. We'll have to do it that way from now on.
Guys, I'll see you next week for my rating review for the next 2 movies. Yeah.
Jeff, you're in charge now. It was nice being here. No, that's great. I love it. So thorough. And yes, I agree about especially the technical bit, because there's a lot of reused footage, like they use the same shot over and over again. Obviously, when they're retreading the story again and again, but there are also moments like the moment when Miss Scarlet screams. It's the same both times. Somebody falls out of the fridge, which I think is a little bit weird. But yeah, I'm 100% with you on all of that. What do you think, Nathan?
So I feel like I'm the bad guy because I'm only giving it a 1 + 2 + 1 + 2 + 1. Which is a 7.
Really?
But I felt like it maybe wasn't as tight as I remember. I felt like there was definitely like jokes that missed, but there's still so much to love. There's still so much to they throw so many things at the wall that if one joke doesn't hit, I can I felt like I love Christopher Lloyd. I just didn't feel like any of his kind of creepy professor really landed for me. And there was a lot of other like, not that I don't want to phrase it, but some of the like the sexist stuff that they did with like, here, search me. Okay. Like, and then it's not that the inherent creepiness of it turned me off. It's just that the joke wasn't very funny, And there
a lot of
the
jokes do seem like they were written by horny teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's still so much to love in this movie. There's still so many moments that are classic and just joyful. That I think I'm gonna have to give it a 1 + 2 + 1 + 2 + 1.
Excellent. Well, you are often like the harshest critic. So for me, when I'm like evaluating,
like usually like we call it like the classic like Nathan like 6.5.
Right.
So like so 7 is
if a movie doesn't have Kurt Russell, then it automatically is down.
Yeah, Kurt Russell is a plus 1.5.
Yes. So like my thought is, is it rewatchable? Does it hold up? Is this the type of movie that, you can throw on at any time and no matter where it is in the movie, you're going to watch the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
You can watch it with the kids and they enjoy it and they think it's funny and they find things that they like about it. I love a PG hilarious movie. I love a comedy that can ride that PG-13 line and still be just as funny as any R-rated comedy. And I think that this movie checks all the boxes, including my enjoyment of it never wanes. I'm still sitting there taking notes, watching it this time, saying the pieces of the movie along with the movie. So that, for me, puts it in the 10 category of the things that on this podcast I have rated as 10s: Princess Bride, Raiders, Die Hard, things like that. For me, Clue is one of them, and I would put it in there. But I understand that not everybody feels the same way. So
and it's hard too. Like judging it against every other movie ever been made, like, yeah, that's where it's okay. You gotta take cues. But when, you're talking about like mainstream movies from the 80s that were popular and that you would rewatch today, I mean, absolutely. It's you putting it up. Your other 10s are like, yeah, those are also 10s. So this would also, it has that same classic, like why you go to the movies feel, this is, it's not film art, it's movies. Right.
Yeah.
It's eating popcorn and you watch it on VHS tapes and, be silly with it.
And like, to me, I asked myself a question: would I go if there was like, if some movie theater someplace was doing a cult classic screening of this, would I be like, oh my God, I have to get my tickets right now because I need to see this in a room full of other people who and give me a little pop gun I can like shoot off when that moment happens. This is a movie where I'm like, sign me up, take me there. I need to be at that revival screening. Okay, so deep cut recommendation. So like everything that I saw, is anybody's choice Knives Out? Because everything that I saw was like,
you could definitely go there, but yeah, no, it's not.
When I looked it up on like when I was renting it on Amazon, they were like, are you sure you don't want to watch Knives Out? Because
Are you sure? It's right here. I'll give it to you. It's right here. Please take this.
You rented Clue, but we're just going to throw in Knives Out. We're just going to have it start playing after this. Is that your deep cut recommendation, Jeff?
That is definitely high on my list. I have a deep list. Yeah.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, there was a lot that I wanted to like that it brought to me and like thinking about, and that I wanted to kind of reflect in there too. I think if you haven't seen the like BBC Sherlock series, I think if you're at all into like the mystery and like really, that part, you got to go back and rewatch that. I think the sort of like ingeniousness of like the multiple endings had a feel of like Kimmy Schmidt, that Choose Your Own Adventure thing that they did on Netflix.
And Radcliffe, like a tie-in.
Yes, exactly. And that, to me, like that novelty of like in a comedy using the ability of it, using the medium to your advantage, it reminded me of it. In sort of like aesthetic and feel, Russian Doll, the Netflix show, kind of, I don't know why, I had a similar vibe to that. Same with like Grand Budapest Hotel in terms of like looking at like kind of this old timey nostalgic type of feel. That board game Mysterium.
That's my recommendation.
I'm sorry, I stole it. I didn't want to steal your recommendation. Okay, never mind. We're skipping that. I think a big win in this is wood paneling in houses is a big win in this one. So I'm going to throw out 3 houses that you can tour. So the first is the Gamble House in Pasadena, California, which is a beautiful craftsman style house. That is like really cool. I'm going to throw in Hearst Castle up in San Simeon. Just mad wood paneling and also craziness there. And then Scotty's Castle in Death Valley. I'm just going to throw that out there. If you're looking for a big house to go through and look in, it just has that same type of vibe.
Which I always am.
Here is the billiards room, and here is the library and the observatory. What are all these rooms for?
The conservatory. I've never understood. I don't know what a conservatory is.
What are you doing there? I don't know. But all of these houses will have a room like that, and you can see and then be like, I still don't know. I still don't know what you do.
Is it for plants? Just tell me. Is it for plants?
Tell me. 2 video games if you're in the mystery. I told you I have so many. I've been thinking about this.
We'll attach the PDF.
I was so excited to do this. So 2 video games: the Paynes Creek Killings, which is kind of this mystery, walk around first person, try to figure out what's going on.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And genuinely, there was a moment in that game that I was playing, and it was it's not a jump scare or anything, but like something just like happened. I was like, no. I had to just get up and leave. I was like, I can't.
Say the name of that one again. Payne's Creek Killings.
Payne's Creek Killings.
Okay.
And then another one, Return of the Obra Dinn, which is a really cool visual experience. The puzzles are really super hard in it, but it has this sort of mix of like Clue and Guess Who, where you're trying to figure out these crimes, these murders that happened on this ship through like listening and figuring out all these things that happened in the past. So I'll throw those out there. And I also really love sci-fi movies, so I'm going to throw 2 movies out there that just reminded, I don't know why, but they like reminded me of this movie as I was watching it. The first is
Are you taking
Adjustment
over
Bureau.
the podcast? Are you taking over the podcast?
Look at me. I am the co-host now. I am the co-host.
He's an improviser and has a degree in film, so you could replace us both, Nathan.
Guys, I got this. Let me
listen to the new
Hey,
episode.
thanks for listening to the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast. Like and review us on Apple Podcasts. We really need those reviews. They help in the search.
All of that's true. Yes. What are we on? We're on sci-fi movies. Okay.
Yes, I gotta show love to my sci-fi. That's my bread and butter. But two that like kind of connected to me like some way with this. Adjustment Bureau with Matt Damon. Kind of has a weird mystery thing that kind of unfolds in it, and then Source Code.
Jake Gyllenhaal
With Jake, with my boy Jake. Kind of has the same type of like trying to figure out a mystery of something that's going on. So that's it. That's all of my stuff. I'm sorry I went overboard. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the searchers for the next little bit.
Murder mystery. The Hateful Eight is a murder mystery.
There you go. Let's connect it in. Anytime somebody's murdered, let's talk about all the things where somebody's murdered. Okay, so there's
So my recommendations. So if you're into like, if you want to, it's like you're into Clue and Knives Out, like some of these British movies where it's very similar to where it's an all-star cast. You've got a detective. Clue didn't really have a detective, but like the all-star, and then people are being picked off one at a time. Like there's these Death on the Nile is the better movie, but it's not really available. It's not easily available. So I'd recommend Evil Under the Sun, which is an Agatha Christie Poirot one, and so it's all-star with like Roddy McDowell, James Mason, who's in like half of these. Peter Ustinov plays Poirot, but it's just like a really fun, very similar, all-star cast. If you want to go a little deeper, a little harder to find, The Last of Sheila is really good. And that's also got James Mason as Ian McShane. James Coburn is in it. That one's really good. That's basically everyone is spending kind of a week on a yacht, as they kind of play a scavenger hunt style mystery game, but it's really about trying to detect who had a hand in killing James Coburn's wife, Sheila. But it was co-written by Stephen Sondheim. So, but yeah,
they also tried to get Stephen Sondheim to write this movie, and he was like, "No, thank you."
Yeah, well, he was a massive like murder mystery nut. Like he would basically do the kind of thing that is in The Last of Sheila, to where he would invite people over for like a murder mystery weekend, and it was like a murder mystery that he had written.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love this. I love.
So yeah, I'd say Evil Under the Sun or The Last of Sheila.
That's great. Yeah, so I figured I would recommend a board game, since that's the origin story here. And I was going to recommend Betrayal at the House on the Hill. And then my 10-year-old was like, no, Mom. It's Mysterium. You got to recommend Mysterium, which is a board game where the object is to find out who killed them and where and with what. But the way that you do so is that you one person is the psychic, or no, is the ghost, and they have to give visions to all the other players who are psychics. And the cards are really beautiful, but they're really weird. So it's like you give someone a picture of a red balloon because you want them to understand that the murderer has a red hat on. And it really lets you know how hard it is to be a ghost who's trying to communicate who your killer was. Really like
that ghost life,
tells you that story. And then I wanted to recommend, just since everybody else had so many recommendations, I got to add one more, which is a Hunt a Killer murder mystery, which is a subscription service. So you subscribe to it, and every month they send you a new packet of evidence. They send you a new packet of evidence, and you have to read the witness statements, look through the autopsy reports, look at the pieces of evidence, like there'll be a pair of socks or a wallet, and you have to piece together the
Wait, some stranger's gonna send me their socks pass. I'm not doing that subscription box. I don't want it.
But it's really fun. So you're solving the mystery basically, and they do a thing where if you finish the first box, there's a little pop-up window because there's a computer element as well as the real stuff, and it'll be do you want us to just send you the next box right now? And I'd be like, yes, send it now. I can't wait a month. So that's really fun too. So all right, Jeff.
Yes.
Where should people look to find all of the cool Jeff stuff?
Well, I appreciate you asking. If you're into podcasts and you're into Dungeons and Dragons, I'm part of a podcast called Knights of the Roll Table, and we're an actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcast. We play the game and we make it up in our own homebrew setting. And we also do the PG as comedy game. So it's fun, and it's one that you can listen to in front of children, which is a lot of fun. And we're currently in season 4 of that, where I am dungeon mastering that. So it's a lot of insanity going on all of the time. So you can check us out. It's at Rolled Table is our handle for Instagram and other things. And you can find us anywhere you get podcasts. It's Knights of the Rolled Table.
Indeed.
Sweet.
Highly recommend that. Nathan, where can everybody find your filmmaking brilliance?
Probably the best place is squishystudios.com. That leads to all the socials and the YouTubes and the videos and things you can read, I suppose. That just seems like the easy route.
Yeah.
I'm really
Where
selling
can we
it.
find out about you?
Oh, well, thank you for asking, Jeff. You can find me at nctphoenix.com, which is N for neighborhood, C for comedy, and T for theater, and Phoenix all spelled out.com. You can actually watch me do improv if you want to online Friday nights for free. Jeff was a recent guest on one of our online shows. And if you're in the Valley, you can see me hopefully out of doors at Saturday night outdoor comedy shows in downtown Mesa. Yay, wonderful. Thank you for listening. Do as Jeff said, and and rate and review and star and thumbs up and do all of those things that podcasts need. Podcasts need. When is the last time you rated a podcast? But who was the last? Guess what? We need your rating a lot more than My Favorite Murder needs your rating. But, Pod Save America doesn't need your rating.
Delete that thumbs up there, because obviously it's a 1-to-1, and then you've got to give us that thumbs up and that rating. And if you find another better podcast, then you can delete ours and give it to them. That's just how this works.
Think twice about that.
And also, every time you give a good review to a podcast you like, a podcast you don't like gets 1-star review and gets further down. So instead of thinking about boosting this one up, you can think about a podcast you hate and shoving it further down in the algorithm.
See, you're also punishing people too. So you should feel good.
There's no
carrot
way to lose.
and stick.
Yes. But obviously we would really appreciate that, you guys. Yeah, and also, while you're out there with your carrot and your stick, keep the most excellent 80s movies podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and
Party
on,
on,
dudes!
It's like flames
Party on
the side of my face, heaving breathless, heaving breaths. Okay, and I will.
Oh, it's so good.
Yay. Woo!